Hello everyone and welcome. So we're doing hopefully a nice inspiring presentation for you today on how to be a great AHP's career ambassador. And we use the terminology career ambassador, but actually it's more about being a professional ambassador, and we'll hopefully give you lots of practical hints and tips as we go through. So I'd like to start by introducing myself. My name's McNamara. I'm a therapeutic radiographer. Please do reach out on Twitter. That's where I engage most about our profession, also in terms of kind of what we're up to, and also the role that I'm currently doing with Hazel, which we'll talk about shortly. I'm currently the National Therapeutic Radiography Clinical Fellow at Macmillan. I'm also a senior lecturer at Sheffield Hallam University, and as part of both of these roles, really, I'm really professional about being a therapeutic radiographer, and that has led me on a really amazing career today around mostly recruitment, retention, workforce development. I'm really an advocate for interprofessional education and how we can work with, from and about each other to improve patient pathways. I'm also a huge AHP advocate, so I'm part of AHP's Day HQ, so if you do know me, that's maybe where you know me from, working really closely with Carrie. I'm also an action radiotherapy champion, so I'm doing lots of miles for radiotherapy at the moment to try and raise money, and I'm actually aching as I present at the moment from all the running and cycling that I've been doing. And I'm really lucky that I've had lots of opportunities being a therapeutic radiographer, one of which was working in Canada on a fellowship. So I'm going to hand over to my partner in crime. That's Hazel.
Well, thanks very much, Jo. So I am also a therapeutic radiographer and have had a varied career. And being an AHP and a therapeutic radiographer has brought me lots of great opportunities, including working in Singapore in the National Cancer Centre. I've also worked in research. I've worked in education and been the education lead and held an honorary contract with the University of Liverpool. And what I'm most known professionally for is I was the operational lead who set up the first high energy NHS proton centre, and that was at the Christie in Manchester. Which was very time consuming. So I decided to address a little bit of work-life balance and make some time for more yoga and tennis. And then with that, as Jo said, the last 12 months, we have been doing the Macmillan Fellowship. And then hot off the press, I've got a new role that I'll hopefully start at the end of September, and I'm going to be the Deputy Chief AHP at Lancashire Teaching Hospitals, so representing all 14 of the AHPs. How exciting. So over to the next slide. So as Jo said, together, we've been quite a force, hopefully, in promoting not only therapeutic radiographers, but some and all of the AHPs. Jo and I were absolutely delighted when we got appointed as the first AHP clinical fellows with Macmillan. So Macmillan have been running the clinical fellowship for quite some time. They've already had 7 clinical fellows, and they've all been medics, doctors. So Jo and I are leading the way, hopefully, and shining a torch for AHPs, and it's been a fantastic year that's almost coming to an end. So it's nice to have the opportunity to talk to you guys as one of our sort of roundup events. So next will be over to Jo on what role or whose role is it to promote AHP careers.
Thanks, Hazel. And I definitely know when I was in clinical practice, I would quite happily sit back and go, well, you know, it's a practice educator's role, or actually it's that person who's liaising with the university to kind of do that AHP careers. I didn't necessarily get involved in it. I didn't think it was part of my role, but it absolutely is. And maybe not necessarily career promotion, and we typically think of outreach work. Actually, when you think about promoting our profession and becoming a professional ambassador, that is absolutely everybody's responsibility. So it shouldn't be an expectation that Health Education England are going to produce lots of clinical fellows and that's going to be their job, is to promote the professions, do careers work, do outreach. Yes, it might be part of it, but it shouldn't be an expectation that it's not your role, because doing really simplistic day-to-day things could make a huge impact, and hopefully we'll kind of discuss some of those as we go through. We want to encourage all AHPs to kind of be aware of their role, their profession, but also their responsibilities and the impact that you can actually make on a daily basis could have very severe consequences. For lots of professions, you know, the general public probably have an idea of what a physiotherapist is, but do they know the roles of the respiratory or the neurological physiotherapist as much as that as a sports physiotherapist? Probably not. You know, when we talk about therapeutic radiography, we're such an unknown profession, and it is definitely one of those where people don't hear about what we do, or those who are even having treatment by us as healthcare professionals don't know what our role is or our title. You definitely don't need to be senior or qualified for years. Actually, if anything, I think it's easier to do kind of promotional work and outreach and careers events being newly qualified, and you can empathize with what it's like to go through the training, and you have an idea of kind of the expectations required from maybe the courses that are out there and that people are undertaking. So, you know, please, if anything that you take away from today, it's just thinking about, okay, what can I do on a daily basis? So what does it mean to be a professional ambassador? So obviously, a lot of the time when we talk about kind of being an ambassador and doing profile raising, we think about those careers. And actually, it's not just about that. I know for a fact that patients can be really anxious about coming for radiotherapy treatments. And actually, if they knew more about radiotherapy, more about the role of a therapeutic radiographer, would that lessen the anxiety of coming to their appointments? Probably. So it can have an impact on our patients just as much as maybe it can with each other. I think it's also important to think about how we can work with each other. So learning with, from, and about other professions can definitely impact practice and also patient pathways. I speak from experience of having patients coming through for radiotherapy, and, you know, they may have undergone surgery. And when I was undergoing my training, I became really good friends with a physio, and I would ring her every now and then and go, oh, I've got a patient at the moment, and actually she's really struggling with arm mobility. You know, what can I do? And it was only after a few of these conversations that we kind of said, why don't we set up a proper referral system, you know, something that's more comprehensive, that everyone gets assessed straight away and can be referred. And as part of that, we developed that referral system, but also we as therapeutic radiographers learn some of the exercises that physiotherapists were prescribing to the patients, and we would give those straight away to the patients rather than having to go for another appointment. So there are huge benefits with kind of learning with, from, and about each other and having that professional relationship. We've also seen it as well with hospital management and leadership teams. We've sat in meetings and they've referred to nurses and doctors, and they've failed to recognise maybe the roles, responsibilities, and the skills that actually we have as an AHP group of professions. And it certainly has been the case, and Hazel's definitely seen this more than I have, but where you kind of are talking to a senior management and you say you're a therapeutic radiographer, and they're talking about radiography equipment, and they're like, you know, we need to get more of this type of equipment, and you're like, but we don't use that type of equipment, and that can put up walls. So, you know, thinking about cultural and behavioural change is actually really important. If we can be professional ambassadors and share all of our knowledge and skills, that could have an impact on other things that we see. So have you considered being a STEM ambassador? So you may never have heard of STEM. So STEM stands for Science, Technology, Engineering and Mathematics. And it's a great organisation. If you just Google STEM, it should come up. And essentially, you can register with them as an ambassador. They will give you some training. They'll get your DBS checked. And it's a great way to do outreach work with schools and colleges in an organised way. Obviously, it's really easy for some people to be able to contact their local school or college and actually say, do you know what, I'll come in and do a presentation. But being a STEM ambassador is, in a way, it really does support you. You feel part of a network. They get to advertise through you. You know, if you produce a digital presentation, you can send it to your STEM network, and that can be shared with all your local schools and colleges. So the impact of your work can be even greater. There's also Inspiring the Future. So again, just have a Google, they will pop up, and very similar. They will support you in being able to actually link with local schools and colleges. And it's also really great that they have the network of people, but you also get the voluntary hours noted. So I know working for Sheffield Hallam University, we get 1 day per year to do voluntary work, and I will quite regularly do STEM ambassador work and outreach work as part of that voluntary, and that's really inspiring. And you do really get to see the future workforce. You know, you'll be talking about other allied health professions, and you see these kids with little lights going off in their heads going, oh yeah, I've never even heard of that profession. So it is really fundamentally inspiring to be able to kind of see the impact of your work.
So what Joe and I have done during our fellowship is we've come up with 10 top tips to help promote your AHP profession. Now, these are not revolutionary, we're not changing the world, but during the secondment, we've both reflected, and I must admit, I've probably reflected more than Joe, because I've realised I've not been doing a lot of these 10 top tips, which is a bit of a mouthful. But I've reflected back and think, oh my gosh, I've had quite senior positions. I've been in positions where I could influence things within the service, and I've not been doing really simple things that would have helped promote my profession. So you guys learn from my mistakes, and we'll go through these top tips on what you can do. So first, let's hear from Hannah Price, operating departmental practitioner.
I don't think we will.
Oh, what a shame. What a shame. So Hannah is an ODP at the Christie Proton Centre, and we've worked together quite closely. And what Hannah was going to tell you is how important it is to introduce yourself and explain your role, particularly operating departmental practitioner. Who knows what one of those does? And sometimes people in meetings or when you go to give a talk, they're too embarrassed to ask because they think I should know what an ODP does. So actually, just when you're in an MDT, don't always assume. And it might not just be a formal meeting about introductions. You could be doing your masters, for example, where you're doing a masters. I know when I did my masters, I was the only therapeutic radiographer. Most of the other students were paramedics and they were nurses. So they were fascinated to hear what I did and they wanted to hear about it. So as I say, make sure, it doesn't matter what the meeting is, it might be at college, it might be at university, it could be within the hospital you work in. Always introduce yourself and ask, do you know what an ODP or do you know what an occupational therapist, whatever your profession is, be happy to be sure with whoever you're with about your role. And the next one, I know I definitely have not always done this. How simple, email signatures. Everybody tends to have a standard strap line. So within that strap line, put your professional title. Many of us have fancy titles. I had one as operational lead, but it didn't tell anybody I was a therapeutic radiographer. Many of you might be an advanced practitioner or a specialist in respiratory or specialist in head and neck. And again, it doesn't tell anybody what your profession is. How are we going to educate the masses if we're not telling everybody? And you can very easily just put that professional title, as some of these examples on the screen have done. And we've got one here, a colleague and friend, Naaman, and he did a little experiment and he actually put his on his personal Hotmail account. So Naaman, therapeutic radiographer, and he said it was fascinating. He'd be ordering something off Amazon and liaising, and they would actually say, do you mind if I just ask, what is a therapeutic radiographer? So we're not advocating saying everybody has to mix the personal and professional life, but what we are advocating is definitely on your professional email, make sure you put your profession. Such a simple opportunity, particularly if you're quite senior, you're emailing outside the hospital, as I was doing, and missed lots and lots of opportunities. And if you're feeling brave enough or want a little experiment, put it on your personal email and see what comes back.
Okay, so name badges, again, so simplistic. I'm sure we've all had it before at some point in our profession where you've got a name badge. HR have ordered a batch of badges straight from their Excel spreadsheet, and your name badge might have pre-treatment, advanced practitioner, it might have specialist, key worker, but it doesn't actually have our profession on it. And if we see from this image here, so I know it's slightly biased, but we've got a therapeutic radiographer there who's putting a head shell on a patient. Now, typically in radiotherapy, when we're setting up patients, they will be staring at our chest. And as a result of that, they are staring directly at our name badges. And so if we've got that opportunity where a patient is lying, they're fixating on something, and they're actually, over analyzing our badge, it's really important that we have our professional titles there. It's good for them to be able to know who it is who's treating them. Typically, and I'm sure lots of people can empathize with this, we might be considered nurses that do additional qualifications to be able to do what we do. Because actually, it's really important that people do appreciate what our professional title is. Think about it from a kind of risk perspective as well. If a patient wanted to make a complaint through HCPC, they wouldn't know what profession we were. If they thought we were a nurse, they wouldn't even be going to the right professional body. So, it is really important from that perspective as well. So a really simplistic opportunity for us to educate the general public about our titles. So have a think about what you've got on your name badge. Think about, does it actually give the perception of your profession? And also thinking about, do you need lots of long titles? Do you need to be able to kind of go into the department and see, if we're working in our own departments, you traditionally know who was a superintendent, who was a manager. And so maybe it's more important if you're working across departments, across wards, to have kind of what your seniority is within the service. But actually, for a lot of us where we aren't as transient, should we just have, we are a therapeutic radiographer and my name is Jo? Really something to think about. So try to use your protected title. Now, I know that this isn't always easy. We think about occupational therapist. It's a bit of a long title, operating department practice. We absolutely know that some of these titles are long. But if you're using OT, you're using ODP, you're not necessarily educating the general public about what it is that your title is and our profession. We also have a real issue within therapeutic radiography that different departments use different terminologies. Now, Hazel and I have spent, I can't even begin to tell you how many hours trying to educate our own workforce to use the correct title. So therapeutic radiographer is our registered title. However, some departments will use radiotherapist, radiographer, or therapy radiographer. And it causes real issues. When you think about recruitment and careers outreach work, I know that people have gone and they've actually Googled radiotherapist. Now, a radiotherapist is typically the oncologist who has specialised in radiotherapy. And so they're not even getting the right profession. So when they're doing some research and they're just using Google, they're not getting the links that they're anticipating. It's taking them down a totally different professional route. So absolutely important. Use our protected titles, use them fully, and try and work to kind of promote that when you're having conversations with patients and also other colleagues.
So this follows on quite nicely. So as well as your name badge, when you have your first contact with patients, always introduce your role. Lots of patients, they think there's only doctors and nurses in the NHS, and it's our role to educate, because again, just following on from what Jo said, it helps with recruitment. It helps when your patient goes home and tells the granddaughter, well, what a great occupational therapist I had. They do a wonderful job. And have you considered being an occupational therapist? Because often patients mistake us for nurses with additional qualifications. And I'm sure across all the AHPs, you can tell a story. So, take that time. Hello, my name's Hazel and I'm a therapeutic radiographer. And maybe even say, if you've got that good rapport with a patient, have you heard about us? Do you know what we do? Do you want me to explain a little bit more? So every opportunity, make sure you tell your patient what your profession is. And let's hear from George and keep our fingers crossed.
Hi, my name's George. I've just finished a degree in paramedic science and I'm currently awaiting my professional registration and start work as a paramedic later on this summer. I think it's important to be an ambassador for your profession at all times, and this can be done in a number of ways, whether it be something big like speaking at a conference or being involved in representing your profession at an event, or it could be something simple like introducing yourself by your name, your role, and the profession that you belong to. I feel that it's important to be proud of your profession, and when working as part of a multidisciplinary team, being proud of the knowledge and skills that you possess that perhaps other people don't, that are unique to your profession and your role, and making sure that we use them to ultimately improve patient care. I think we're always an ambassador to our profession, and we should be mindful of this in our professional and social lives, and ultimately staying humble to our professional roots and where the profession came from, and not being afraid to look to the future and to progress and push the professions forward.
Oh, wasn't that great to hear from George? And I'm so pleased it played, although we do have him in the background and we could have made him come on and do it live. But you actually saw quite nicely. So George is hosting this afternoon sessions. And what did he do when he came on? He introduced himself and introduced his profession. And he said something else that was key. Be proud of your profession and tell people who you are and what you do. So it can be something big, like, as George said, conferences, but you might have the opportunity to write an article. It might get published. It might not be in a peer-reviewed journal, but you might write something for your local newspaper. As I know, with the Proton service, lots of the local newspapers were running stories, and really what I should have been doing was proofreading those and making sure my professional title of therapeutic radiographer was included. So you might be doing some teaching and you think everybody knows who I am, but actually the teaching might be to, say, some GPs talking about your area of practice. And actually, Joe and I have found working within Macmillan, other healthcare professionals don't necessarily know what you do unless they work very closely with you in that profession, and many don't. So don't assume that others will know exactly what you do. Always take that opportunity.
Okay, so media. So this is probably a contentious one. And I say this in a positive way, in the fact that some people don't necessarily want to engage with social media. But if you do engage with it and it's a professional account, so LinkedIn, if you're on Twitter, I know Twitter tends to be a bit more professional, then actually just putting what your profession is can have a huge impact. I know I'm really passionate about being a therapeutic radiographer. And so as part of that, I actually have it on all of my own personal social media accounts. So I kind of have the conversations with people over social media and asking the question, oh, I've seen you're a therapeutic radiographer. What is that? And there can be some boundary issues. So, if I'm quite visible on social media, and as a result of that, you do get some patients asking you questions, but I think you can almost format a templated response to. I think it's important that you do discuss this with your own healthcare team or your own healthcare professionals. But there are also real positives to engaging with patients on social media. I know Hazel and I, as part of our fellowship work, have actively used Twitter to recruit service users to be able to come and give their experiences, share their ideas of how we could improve the profession. And we've worked really closely with some amazing patients who have had huge impact on Hazel and I, but also the work that we're doing. So there are real benefits to kind of being quite visible on social media. But if you choose not to, I know Hazel likes to separate her personal and professional social media accounts, and that's absolutely fine. But thinking about other ways. So as she said, working with the media, TV stations, radio, there's actually, I know I've worked with BBC Sheffield before and just had a conversation of things that we're working on in our profession at the moment. And they, every occasion that they kind of get a story that's maybe around radiotherapy, I'll get an invite, because you get that kind of relationship with them, and they know you and they know that you're able to talk on radio, and sometimes at short notice. So it can have a personal impact as well on the opportunities that provide themselves. So patient literature and information. So Hazel and I spent many a night trawling through all of Macmillan's patient information leaflets, and we corrected every single radiographer to therapeutic radiographer where it was the case. We also replaced some of the terminologies. There was therapy radiographer referred to quite a lot. So it can take a lot of time, but you don't have to do it all at once. Basically, if you read any patient literature or information and it's not got your correct professional title, just go and email the production team, or typically they'll ask for reviews. And when they then get them reprinted, which could be a long time in the future, and that's fine, but when they get them reprinted, they can correct that information. So again, really easy, simple to do, but can have a real impact for our patients knowing about our profession. Organisation websites. So I think because we are more digital now, because patients like to educate themselves around maybe the appointments they are attending, they will quite often go onto a trust website, look for the department, look for the healthcare professionals that are delivering their team. So it is really important that they're accurate. And one of the things that I've seen as part of the fellowship work that we're doing is around the media that's used. So for us specifically, we might have a therapeutic radiographer title talking about our profession, and then you'll have an image of a diagnostic radiographer, or maybe with dietetics. So dietetics always has an image of an obese patient, or fast food, or healthy food. And that almost creates a stereotype that dietitians are there specifically to deal with weight management, when we know that that's not the case. When you see adverts for physiotherapists and there's always a sporty person in lycra, well, we know that that's not the only thing that physiotherapists, they don't only work in sports. So actually, the marketing and branding of our profession, it should be really important and taken into consideration. So go onto your organisation website, have a read of what information they've got about AHPs and your specific profession, but also think about, is it good quality? You know, does it really tell a patient what our profession does, and does it have the right media associated with it?
So really, number 10 is rounding it all up and just saying, just use every available opportunity. As we started off the session, Joe and I both know we've missed lots of simple opportunities. And those opportunities, as Joe said, it could be, media, it could be TV, it could be in work, it's doing your email signature, but it's telling your family and friends as well what you do. It's when you're on holiday on the beach and somebody always says, oh, what do you do? So actually, just take that time, take a couple of minutes, explain, because that is helping educate everybody. And like today, Joe and I are really honoured to have the opportunity to speak and explain, and hopefully give you in the audience some tips that you can take forward. And even if it's just something really small, like your email signature, I think it really will make a difference.
Thank you, Hazel. So lastly, we're going to hear from Adele. Hopefully this will work. And Adele is a huge professional ambassador. She's absolutely amazing. And hopefully she puts really clearly what she does to be a professional ambassador.
I'm Adele, and I'm a cancer dietitian. How do I promote the profession and advocate for my role? Well, it really helps that I love my job as a cancer dietitian, and I'm really passionate to push through the myths around eating and cancer, of which there are many. I'm honest about how food can support someone with cancer and what it can and can't do, that it's not the cure that Dr. Google often sells to vulnerable people. I keep in touch with up-to-date research and have clinical supervision with colleagues for lifelong learning and team support. I seek out opportunities to share my knowledge in webinars and courses. I work with charities, including Macmillan, on new and innovative projects. I volunteer with the European Federation of Associations for Dietitians in their oncology committee to promote the role of dietitians across Europe. I'm active on social media, and I've branched out to work with health tech companies developing new and exciting tools to support cancer patients. People need adequately trained dietitians to support them to live well with cancer and to know what support is out there for them. And I would love to see you there soon.
So amazing. So Adele utilises every single opportunity to be able to help promote her role.
I'm Adele,
Okay, so that's everything from Hazel and I. We'd really like to thank you for your time and attention today. We hope it's been interesting. If you had any ideas that you think we've missed or opportunities that you think we should be sharing with people, then by all means, please do get in touch with us via email or via Twitter. Thank you very much.